The world doesn't reward conformity, it celebrates the bold, the unconventional, the ones who dare to break the mold. What if everything you've been taught about success is holding you back? What if the key to unlocking your greatest potential lies not in following the rules, but in rewriting them? This isn't just about thinking outside the box. It's about setting the box on fire and stepping into the unknown. It's about defying expectations, embracing discomfort, and forging a path so uniquely yours that failure has no choice but to get out of your way. When you think different, you see opportunities where others see obstacles. When you act different, you create results that others call luck. And when you commit to both, you become unstoppable. But if the reason you're not where you want to be isn't because you're not good enough, but because you're too much like everyone else. The truth? Average effort gets average results. Ordinary thinking leads to an ordinary life, and if you keep doing what everyone else does, you'll keep getting what everyone else gets. Because if you think like everyone else, you live like everyone else. But when you think different, you unlock a realm of possibilities others never see. When you act different, you refuse to be confined by the limits others accept. And when those two forces collide, a renewed mind and radical action, you don't just make progress, you become unstoppable. This is not motivation. This is transformation. This is the beginning of your unstoppable journey. No more waiting, no more settling, no more believing the limits they tried to put on you. The world wasn't changed by people who fit in. It was shaped by those who stood up, stood out, and refused to quit. And that is exactly who you're meant to be. The journey starts now. Are you ready to leave average behind and claim the extraordinary? Now, let me walk you through this mindset shift. Think differently. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually stopped and questioned the rules? I mean, really questioned them. Not just idle curiosity, but deep, uncomfortable challenging of everything we've been taught to accept. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. From the moment you were born, you were handed a script. Go to school, get good grades, find a safe job, work for 40 years, retire, and then what? Hope you saved enough to enjoy the last 20 years of your life? That's not living. That's a life sentence with good behavior. Look around right now. The most successful people, the ones changing the game, they all have one thing in common. They threw out the rule book. Steve Jobs, college dropout. Oprah, fired from her first TV job. Richard Branson, dyslexic kid who teachers said would never amount to anything. Yet here we are, still lining up like obedient sheep, following a system designed to produce employees, not innovators. Beliefs, they teach us to color inside the lines when all the magic happens outside the margin. Here's what they don't teach you in school. Every single industry, every system, every so-called rule was made up by someone who was no smarter than you. The education system, designed during the Industrial Revolution to create factory workers. The 9 to 5, an arbitrary schedule from a time when we needed daylight to work. Retirement age, literally invented by Otto von Bismarck in the 1800s, when life expectancy was 45. We're following rules created for a world that doesn't exist anymore. And the most dangerous part? We've internalized these rules so deeply that when someone breaks them, we call them lucky or privileged instead of recognizing their courage. How many of you have had this thought? I can't do that because, and then filled in the blank with some imaginary rule. I can't start a business without experience. I can't speak up without a degree. I can't change careers at my age. Newsflash, the only thing actually stopping you is your belief in these imaginary boundaries. Let me show you how deep this goes. Close your eyes for a second. Picture success. What do you see? Probably a nice house, a fancy car, maybe a corner office. Now ask yourself, who defined that as success? Because I guarantee that image didn't come from your soul. It came from thousands of ads, movies, and social media posts programming you to want what they're selling. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed to keep you consuming, complying, and conforming. But today that changes. Right here, right now, we're going to start thinking differently, not just about success, but about possibility itself. Because once you realize all these rules are imaginary, you realize something terrifying and liberating. You've always been free. The chains were never real. You just believed they were. And belief, that's the one thing you can change in an instant. So I'll leave you with this. What if everything you've been told about how life has to be is wrong? What if the only thing standing between you and the life you truly want is the courage to think differently? The system doesn't reward rule followers. It never has. The rewards go to those bold enough to ask, why not me? And brave enough to act on it. That, when everything changes. Now, who's ready to start thinking differently? Let me tell you about 3 people who decided the rules didn't apply to them. First, there was a young boy in South Africa who got bullied so badly he once had to be hospitalized. Teachers said he was slow, that he daydreamed too much. Today, Elon Musk is putting humans on Mars because he dared to believe what others called impossible wasn't just possible, it was necessary. Then there was a little girl born into poverty in rural Mississippi, raised by a grandmother who beat her regularly. At 14, she was pregnant, and everyone said her life was over before it began. But Oprah Winfrey didn't get that memo. She decided her past wouldn't define her future and created a media empire by being unapologetically herself in a world that told her to fit in. And Kobe Bryant, at 17 years old, he walked straight from high school onto an NBA court filled with grown men who wanted to destroy him. They said he was too young, too skinny, too arrogant. 5 championships later, they call him one of the greatest because he had the audacity to believe he belonged on that court before anyone else did. What do these 3 have in common? They all faced the same choice we face every single day. Follow the well-worn path everyone says is safe, or blaze their own trail through impossible odds. They chose the impossible. And here's what's fascinating. None of them were born with superpowers. They weren't aliens or mutants or chosen ones. They were just people who decided that conventional wisdom was often just conventional nonsense. Elon could have stayed in academia. Oprah could have settled for being a local news anchor. Kobe could have gone to college like everyone expected. But they didn't. Why? Because they understood something most people never grasp. Playing by the rules only gets you what everyone else has. Breaking them gets you what no one thought possible. When Elon started SpaceX, aerospace experts laughed at him. When Oprah launched her network, media executives said it would fail. When Kobe took those last mecca shots, coaches screamed at him to pass. But here's what separates legends from the rest. They trusted their vision more than they feared criticism. They valued what could be over what had always been. Now look at your own life. How many times have you stopped yourself because that's not how it's done? How many ideas have you abandoned because no one does it that way? These case studies aren't about worshiping celebrities. They're mirrors showing us what's possible when we stop asking for permission and start believing in our own potential. The world will always try to put you in a box with labels like realistic and practical, but history doesn't remember the practical ones. It remembers those crazy enough to think they could change things. Your job isn't to follow their exact path, it's to learn from their courage. To look at the rules of your industry, your relationships, your own mind, and ask one dangerous question. Says who? Because here's the truth no one tells you. Every breakthrough in human history came from someone who looked at the way things were and said, we can do better. Every innovation, every record broken, every barrier shattered, started with someone refusing to accept that's just how it is. And right now, in your life, there's something calling you to do the same. The question is, will you listen? Now, I want you to do something uncomfortable. Right now, in this moment, I need you to get brutally honest with yourself. Take out your phone, grab a notebook, or just hold this thought in your mind. What is the one belief that's been holding you hostage? That voice in your head that whispers, you're not ready when opportunity knocks. That story you keep telling yourself about why you can't have what you truly want. Maybe it's, I'm too old to start over, or I don't have the right connections, or that classic, who am I to think I could do that? Here's what you need to understand. These aren't truths, they're mental handcuffs you've been carrying around for years. And today, we're going to pick the lock together. I'll go first. For years, I believed I had to have everything figured out before I could start. Perfect plan, perfect timing, perfect conditions. Know what that got me? A front row seat to watch other people live my dreams while I waited for permission that never came. Then one day I realized the perfect time doesn't exist. The perfect conditions never arrive. You have to start with what you have, where you are. Now it's your turn. I want you to write down or mentally acknowledge that single most limiting belief standing between you and your next level. Is it about money? I'll never be good with finances. About relationships? I always attract the wrong people. About your capabilities? I'm just not a disciplined person. Whatever it is, shine a light on it right now. Because here's the secret. Beliefs are just thoughts we've repeated enough times to feel true. And thoughts can be changed. Look at what you've written or identified. Now ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Was it a parent's offhand comment that stuck? A teacher who labeled you? A failure you never processed properly? Most of these prison walls in our minds were built by other people's opinions and our own misinterpreted experiences. But here's the game changer. If you adopted a belief, you can drop a belief. The same mind that created these limitations can dismantle them. Now for the most important question. What would you do differently if you didn't believe this anymore? If money wasn't an issue, what business would you start? If fear of judgment disappeared, what dream would you pursue? If you knew you couldn't fail, what bold move would you make? That right there, that vision trying to push through the cracks of your doubts. That's your truth trying to break free. Here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, I want you to act as if this old belief is already gone. Fake it till you make it. When that familiar doubt creeps in, respond with, that's not who I am anymore. Because the fastest way to kill a limiting belief is to starve it of attention while feeding your new truth with action. The moment you start behaving like the person who doesn't carry that limitation, you become that person. So let me ask you, what's one small action you can take today that proves your old belief wrong? Maybe it's reaching out to that person you've been afraid to contact. Maybe it's finally starting that project you've been overthinking. Maybe it's simply declaring, I am someone who, and filling in the blank with who you're becoming rather than who you've been. The revolution starts in your mind, but it's cemented through your actions. Remember this, your current beliefs got you to where you are today. If you want to get somewhere new, you need new beliefs. So right now, in this moment, make a choice. That old story, it ends today. The new chapter starts with 3 powerful words. I am ready. Stay with me as we unpack the action blueprint, which is act differently. Let me tell you about the greatest lie we have ever been sold. The myth of overnight success. We see the championship win, but miss the 4 Ironman workouts. We admire the best-selling author, but skip over the decade of rejected manuscripts. We want the breakthrough without the daily grind. But here's the truth that changes everything. Massive success is simply small actions, repeated consistently, compounded over time. Tell this to continue thinking about this. If you improve by just 1% every single day, in 1 year you'll be 37 times better. Not 37% better, 37 times better. That's the power of tiny gains stacked relentlessly. The world obsesses over talent, but talent is overrated. What separates legends from the rest isn't some magical gift. It's showing up when no one's watching and putting in the work when no one's cheering. I want you to picture an ice-cold morning, 5:30 a.m. Two people wake up, one hits snooze thinking, I'll start tomorrow. The other laces up their shoes for a run. That single decision means nothing today. But make that choice 300 times. Now one person is out of shape, making excuses, while the other is competing in marathons. The same starting point, entirely different outcomes. Not because of talent, because of tiny choices compounded. This is how you rewrite your story. Not through grand gestures, but through microscopic victories. That extra 10 minutes of studying when you're tired. That uncomfortable sales call you make anyway. That healthy meal you choose when fast food would be easier. These seem insignificant in isolation, but string them together and they become unstoppable momentum. Right now, I want you to think of one area where you've been waiting for motivation to strike. What's the smallest action you could take daily that would create massive change over time? Maybe it's writing 200 words a day. Maybe it's making 5 extra sales calls. Maybe it's 15 minutes of language practice. The size doesn't matter, the consistency does. Because here's what happens. That first week, you'll see nothing. First month, barely a difference. But 6 months in, you'll look back and realize you've accidentally become exceptional. The most dangerous phrase in the English language is, I'll start when I have more time, when I feel ready, when conditions are perfect. Newsflash, that day never comes. Champions aren't made during inspired moments. They're forged in the mundane minutes when no one's applauding. The writer who publishes a book first committed to daily pages. The entrepreneur who built an empire first showed up when there was no money coming in. The athlete who won gold first fell in love with boring repetition. So here's your challenge. Starting today, find your 1%. What microscopic improvement can you make daily that would change everything if you didn't quit? Write it down, set a reminder, and when that voice says it's not enough, remember, a river cuts through rock, not by its power, but by its persistence. Here's the truth that changes everything. Success is the sum of small, faithful efforts repeated daily. Just like the parable of the talents teaches us, those who are faithful with little will be entrusted with much. Matthew 25:21. That 1% improvement you make today, that extra hour of study when you're tired, that difficult phone call you make anyway, that healthy choice when no one's watching, these are the seeds of your future harvest. Your small, consistent actions are quietly becoming your superpower. The question is, will you stay with it long enough to see the breakthrough? Let me tell you about the greatest lie we've ever been sold, the myth of overnight success. We see David defeating Goliath, but forget about the years he spent faithfully practicing with his sling while tending sheep, Samuel 17. We want breakthroughs without the daily grind, but even Jesus spent 30 years preparing before his 3 years of ministry, Luke 3:23. The world tells you to wait for perfect conditions, but Ecclesiastes says if you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never get anything done, Ecclesiastes 11:4. Your Jericho walls won't fall after one march. They require consistent daily obedience. That email you send today, that skill you practice, that relationship you nurture, none may seem significant alone, but stack them together over time, and you'll wake up one day to find you've accidentally become exceptional. So here's your challenge. Find your daily 1%. What small step can you take today that would change everything if you didn't quit? Because the same God who multiplied 5 loaves and 2 fish can take your small, consistent offerings and turn them into something miraculous. The question is, will you stay faithful in the small things long enough to see the breakthrough? Here is the 1% rule. Small, relentless actions beat talent. Success is the sum of tiny efforts, repeated daily. Let me ask you something brutally honest. How many times have you waited to feel like it before taking action? How many workouts have you skipped because you weren't motivated? How many important tasks have you put off because you just didn't have the energy? Here's the hard truth nobody tells you. If you wait until you feel like it, you'll be waiting forever. The most successful people in the world don't achieve greatness because they are always motivated. They achieve it because they've mastered one critical skill: doing it anyway. Think about this for a second. When you wake up tomorrow morning and that alarm goes off at 5, are you going to feel like jumping out of bed? Probably not. When it's time to make those difficult phone calls, are you going to feel like picking up the phone? Unlikely. When you're exhausted at the end of a long day, but know you should work on your side hustle, are you going to feel like putting in the extra hours? Of course not. But here's what separates those who make it from those who just dream about it: the discipline to act regardless of how you feel. Discipline isn't about punishment or deprivation. It's actually the ultimate form of freedom. Freedom from regret, freedom from what if, freedom from being at the mercy of your moods and emotions. Every time you choose discipline over convenience, you're not restricting yourself. You're liberating your future self from the consequences of today's laziness. The writer who forces themselves to write when they don't feel inspired gets published. The entrepreneur who works through the doubt builds the business. The athlete who trains when they're tired wins the championship. I want you to try something right now. Think of one thing you've been putting off because you haven't felt like it. Maybe it's starting that project. Maybe it's having that difficult conversation. Maybe it's just going to bed on time tonight. Now imagine your future self 1 year from today looking back. Will they be grateful you waited until you felt like it? Or will they wish you had just done it anyway? Here's the secret. No motivational speaker will tell you action creates motivation, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel motivated to start. You start and then the motivation comes. That first rep in the gym is the hardest. That first sentence on the blank page is the most difficult. That first cold call is the most terrifying. But once you push through that initial resistance, momentum takes over. The magic happens when you stop waiting for inspiration and start creating it through action. So here's your challenge, starting today. When that voice in your head says, I don't feel like it, I want you to respond with, that's exactly why I must do it. Because every time you do what's hard instead of what's easy, you're building the kind of discipline that makes you unstoppable. The kind of discipline that turns dreams into reality. The kind of discipline that looks at obstacles and says, watch me. That's not just discipline, that's freedom in its purest form. Let me guide you through the discipline rule. Discipline equals freedom. You won't feel like doing it. Do it anyway. Now, let me hit you with an uncomfortable truth. Your brain is wired to resist discipline. It's not your fault. It's biology. Our ancestors survived by conserving energy, avoiding discomfort, and taking the path of least resistance. But here's the problem. In today's world, that same survival mechanism is killing your potential. Every time you hit snooze instead of rising, scroll instead of studying, or complain instead of creating, you're letting millions of years of evolution dictate your destiny. But you're not a caveman. You're a creator. And creators rewrite their programming through conscious, consistent action. Let me show you how this works in real life. Imagine two versions of yourself. Version A waits for perfect conditions. They'll start eating healthy after the holidays. They'll launch the business when they have more savings. They'll repair the relationship when the other person apologizes first. Now meet version B, the disciplined warrior. They meal prep on Sundays even when tired. They ship that minimum viable product even if it's not perfect. They show up with love even when it's not reciprocated. Fast forward 5 years, who do you think is living their dream life? The answer is obvious, yet most people keep waiting like version A, wondering why nothing changes. Here's where most motivational advice gets it wrong. They tell you to find your why or visualize success. That's helpful, but incomplete. The real game changer? Building what Navy SEALs call micro-disciplines. Small, non-negotiable actions that train your brain to override feelings. Make your bed every morning. Complete a 5-minute meditation, even if your mind races. Send one outreach email before checking social media. These seem insignificant, but they're psychological power moves that strengthen your discipline muscle. And just like going to the gym, the more you train it, the stronger it gets. I want you to try something right now. Identify one micro-discipline you'll implement starting tomorrow. Something so small it's almost laughable, but so consistent it becomes unbreakable. Maybe it's writing 3 morning pages before coffee. Maybe it's doing 10 push-ups right after waking. Maybe it's speaking one positive affirmation aloud while looking in the mirror. The content doesn't, because here's what happens neurologically. Every time you follow through despite resistance, you're rewiring your brain to associate discomfort with growth rather than danger. You're becoming the type of person who doesn't just think differently, but acts differently regardless of circumstances. This is how ordinary people achieve extraordinary things. Not through superhuman willpower, but through strategic, systematic discipline. They don't wait for motivation. They create momentum. They don't avoid discomfort. They lean into it, knowing that's where transformation happens. And you can do the same starting today. The first step is simple but profound. Stop negotiating with yourself. When it's time to act, act. No debate. No compromise. Just do the thing. Because every time you honor your commitments to yourself, you're not just completing a task. You're constructing the unshakable identity of someone who gets results. That's not just discipline. That's self-mastery. And it's available to you right now if you choose it. Let's take a closer look at the productivity hacks, the 2-minute rule, time blocking, and the hell yes or no filter. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. How many hours did you waste this week doing busy work instead of meaningful work? How much time evaporated in that black hole of just checking emails or social media? Here's the uncomfortable truth. In a hyper-connected world, productivity isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter. And today I'm going to give you 3 game-changing hacks that will help you reclaim your time and supercharge your results. First, the 2-minute rule. This is so simple, it's almost criminal. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. That email you're about to flag for later, reply now. That quick phone call you've been putting off, make it now. Why? Because the mental energy you waste remembering and avoiding small tasks is far greater than the energy it takes to just do them. Your brain is for having ideas, not storing them. Clear the decks and watch your focus skyrocket. Now let's talk about time blocking. The secret weapon of billionaires and world-class performers. Here's how it works. Instead of reacting to your day, you design it. You take your calendar and assign specific blocks of time for specific tasks. Not just meetings, but deep work, creative time, even breaks. This isn't about filling every minute. It's about controlling where your energy goes. Because right now, your time is being hijacked by other people's priorities. When you time block, you're not managing your schedule, you're guarding your life. Finally, the most liberating filter you'll ever use, hell yes or no. Here's the rule. If an opportunity or request doesn't make you say hell yes with genuine excitement, the answer is no. No maybes, no I shoulds, just no. This one filter will eliminate 90% of the distractions, obligations, and soul-sucking commitments that drain your energy. You'll suddenly find yourself with more time, more focus, and more passion for the things that truly matter. So here's your challenge. Pick one of these hacks, just one, and commit to using it for the next 48 hours. Try the 2-minute rule and feel the weight of unfinished tasks lift. Block out your ideal tomorrow before you go to bed tonight. Or say no to something that doesn't light you up. These aren't just productivity tricks, they're rebellion against a world designed to distract you. Master them and you won't just get more done, you'll get the right things done. And that changes everything. Now let me show you how to weaponize these hacks together. Because when you combine them, that's when the magic happens. Picture this. You start your morning by ruthlessly applying the 2-minute rule to clear the mental clutter. Boom, instant momentum. Then you look at your time-blocked schedule, where you've already assigned your peak energy hours to your most important work. No decision fatigue, just deep focus. And when distractions come knocking, that hell yes or no filter stands guard like a bouncer at the club of your attention. This isn't just productivity, this is an operating system for high performers. But here's where most people fail. They try to implement all three at once and burn out. So let me give you the secret sauce. Stack them gradually. Week 1, master the 2-minute rule until it becomes automatic. Week 2, add time blocking for just your mornings. Week 3, deploy the hell yes filter to one area of your life. This isn't about perfection, it's about progression. I'd rather see you consistently apply one hack than half-heartedly attempt all three. Now, let's get brutally practical. Your phone is the biggest productivity vampire, so here's your mission if you choose to accept it. For the next 24 hours, every time you catch yourself mindlessly reaching for your phone, you're going to ask one question. Is this a hell yes? Not kinda, not maybe. Does this activity truly deserve your limited attention? If not, you've just saved another precious fragment of your focus. Do this for one day, and you'll be shocked how much mental bandwidth you reclaim. Remember this, productivity isn't about doing more things, it's about doing more of the right things. These 3 hacks are your shovel to dig out from under the avalanche of modern distractions. The first day will feel awkward, the first week will test you, but a month from now, you'll look back and wonder how you ever lived without this clarity. The choice is yours. Keep drowning in busy work, or start wielding these tools like the productivity warrior you were meant to be, who's ready to take back control. Now let me teach you how to overcome fear and failure. The only way to avoid criticism, do nothing. But you're not here for nothing. Let me ask you something raw and real. When was the last time you didn't do something because you were afraid to fail? When was the last time you held back your idea, your voice, your ambition because someone might judge you? Here's the hard truth. The only way to avoid criticism is to stand still, stay small, and do absolutely nothing. But let me tell you something. You were not put on this earth to play it safe. You were not designed to tiptoe through life just to arrive safely at death. Every dream you've ever had, every vision that keeps you up at night, it's all on the other side of fear. And the only way out is through. Think about this. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the tuition you pay for success. Every single person who's ever achieved anything meaningful has a resume full of failures. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Oprah was fired from her first TV job. But here's what they understood that most people don't. Failure isn't fatal, it's feedback. It's not a stop sign, it's a detour to something better. The only true failure is letting the fear of failure decide your future. I want you to imagine something right now. Picture yourself 5 years from today looking back at this moment. What will hurt more? The criticism you faced for trying, or the regret you feel for not trying at all? That project you're scared to start, that conversation you're avoiding, that leap you're too afraid to take. They're not just obstacles, they're opportunities in disguise. Because here's the secret: the things you're most afraid to do are usually the very things that will set you free. So here's your challenge. I want you to do one thing this week that scares you. Send that email, make that call, launch that idea. And when the fear creeps in, because it will, I want you to remember this: courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important. You can either face the temporary discomfort of trying or the lifelong pain of wondering, what if? The choice is yours. But remember this: you are far more capable than your fears would have you believe. And the world needs what you have to offer. So stop waiting for perfect. Stop fearing failure. Start embracing the messy, glorious process of becoming who you were meant to be. Because the only thing worse than failing is never trying at all. Now let me tell you something that will change how you see every setback. Failure isn't your enemy. It's your training ground. The Bible tells us that though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. Proverbs 24:16. 7 times, not once or twice, but 7. Meaning God expects you to stumble on your way to success. Those rejections, those closed doors, those moments when you feel like giving up, they're not proof you're failing. They're proof you're fighting. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think courage means feeling no fear. That's not courage. That's delusion. Real courage is what David showed when he faced Goliath. Knees shaking, but moving forward anyway. Samuel 17. He didn't wait until he felt brave. He acted brave until the fear lost its power over him. That's the secret. Your fears don't disappear when you become strong. You become strong when you stop letting fear disappear. So here's your battle plan. Next time failure knocks you down, and it will, I want you to hear 7 little words that change everything. Get up. God's not done with you. Because your story isn't over until He says it's over. That dream, that purpose, that calling, they're still yours for the taking. The question is, will you let fear write your story? Or will you rise one more time, then you fall? Are you ready? Let's step into the unstoppable mindset. Become unstoppable. Let me tell you about a woman who was broke, depressed, and living on welfare. A single mom riding the bus in Edinburgh with a baby in one arm and a manuscript in the other. 12 publishers rejected her book. 12. They told her to get a day job. That woman was J.K. Rowling. Today, Harry Potter is a $25 billion 0-cents franchise. But here's what most people miss. Those 12 rejections weren't the end of her story. They were the fire that forged her resilience. She had every reason to quit. No money, no support, no guarantees. But she kept going. Why? Because she understood what you need to understand right now. Rejection isn't a stop sign. It's a detour to something. Now let me tell you about a man fired from his own company at 30 years old. Humiliated, devastated. He later said it was the best thing that ever happened to him. That man was Steve Jobs. Getting fired from Apple forced him to start Pixar and Next, which ultimately led to his triumphant return and the creation of the iPhone. The very thing that seemed like the end became the beginning of his greatest work. Here's the truth, written in both their stories. Your lowest moments aren't your finish line, they're your foundation. The world will try to write you off right before your comeback. Don't let them. I want you to think about your own life right now. What's the rejection that still stings? The failure that plays on repeat in your mind at 3 a.m. The dream you've almost given up on because it's taken longer than expected. Here's what I need you to understand. That pain isn't proof you should quit. It's proof you're alive. and fighting for something that matters. The most unstoppable people aren't those who never fall. They're those who keep rewriting their story every time life knocks them down. Let me share something personal with you. Early in my career, I faced a rejection so brutal it made me question everything. For weeks, I couldn't get out of bed. Then one morning, I realized something. The story wasn't over unless I said it was. So I took that rejection and used it as rocket fuel. That setback became the setup for my greatest success. And here's what I learned that changed everything. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's a choice you make every time life tries to knock you out. You don't find it in the light. You discover it in the dark. Right now, I want you to make a decision. Whatever battle you're fighting, whatever dream seems impossible, whatever voice inside says, you can't, you're going to use it as kindling for your fire. Because the world needs people who've been knocked down and got back up. People who know what failure tastes like but keep hungry for success. People who understand that the only true defeat is staying down when you have one more round left in you. That's what being unstoppable really means. Not that nothing can stop you, but that you refuse to stay stopped. So here's your challenge. The next time life hits you hard, and it will, I want you to hear these words. This isn't the end of your story. This is where the plot thickens. Because your greatest comeback starts the moment you decide the last chapter hasn't been written yet. Who's ready to turn their setbacks into comebacks? Now let me tell you about a man who was told he was too small, too slow, and would never make it in basketball. He got cut from his high school team. Imagine that. He went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. But then he did something extraordinary. He used that rejection as fuel. That young man was Michael Jordan. And what did he do next? He became the greatest basketball player of all time. Not because he was the most talented from the start, but because he had something no one could coach, an unstoppable mindset. He didn't just bounce back. He came back stronger every single time. And that's exactly what you're capable of too. Think about this. Every single person who's ever achieved anything extraordinary has faced moments where quitting seemed like the only option. But here's the difference. They didn't listen. They didn't let failure define them. They let it refine them. They understood that success isn't about avoiding the fall. It's about how fast you get back up. It's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about how many times you get back up with even more determination. That's the unstoppable mindset. And here's the best part. It's not reserved for the chosen few. It's available to anyone willing to cultivate it. I want you to think about your own life right now. What's that one thing you've been putting off because you're afraid of failing? That dream you've been too scared to chase? That goal that seems too big? Here's the truth. The only thing standing between you and that dream is your willingness to fail, get back up, and try again. Because failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of success. Every no brings you closer to a yes. Every setback teaches you something new. Every rejection is redirecting you to something better. The question is, are you willing to trust the process? Let me share something with you that changed my life. There was a time when I hit rock bottom. Lost everything I'd worked for. I felt like a complete failure. But in that moment, I realized something profound. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. And that's exactly what's available to you right now. Your current struggles aren't signs that you're off track. They're signs that you're being prepared for something greater. The pressure you're feeling isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to shape you into the person capable of handling the success that's coming your way. So here's what I need you to do. Starting today, when you face obstacles, you will, I want you to smile and say, this is where the magic happens. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra That decision to keep going when everything in you wants to quit. That's the unstoppable mindset. And once you adopt it, once you truly believe that nothing can stop you, you'll look back and realize that every single challenge was necessary to prepare you for the greatness that was always meant to be yours. Who's ready to stop seeing obstacles and start seeing opportunities? Who's ready to stop fearing failure and start using it as fuel? Who's ready to become truly unstoppable? The choice is yours, and the time is now. Let me tell you something that might sting a little. Right now, someone out there wants what you want, and they're willing to do what you're not. While you're hitting snooze, they're hitting the gym. While you're complaining about your circumstances, they're changing theirs. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The difference between where you are and where you want to be isn't luck or talent or connections. It's your willingness to embrace the grind when nobody's watching. We live in a world that worships overnight success, but ignores the years of unseen struggle that made it possible. We see the championship win, but miss the 4 I am inning workouts. We admire the best-selling author, but skip over the decade of rejection letters. We want the breakthrough without the daily grind. But here's what champions know that most people never understand. The obstacle isn't blocking your path, it is the path. The challenge you're facing, that's not something to avoid, that's your training ground for greatness. Let me ask you something raw and real. When was the last time you did something truly difficult? Not inconvenient, not uncomfortable, genuinely difficult. Because here's what I've learned about high achievers. They don't run from hard things, they run toward them. They understand that every rep, every rejection, every late night is another brick in the foundation of their success. While others are looking for shortcuts, they're looking for ways to go deeper into the grind. I want you to picture something right now. 2 people wake up at 5 a.m. One hits snooze thinking, I'll start tomorrow. The other laces up their shoes and gets to work. That single decision means nothing today. But make that choice 300 times. Now one person is out of shape making excuses, while the other is competing at elite levels. Same starting point, entirely different outcomes. Not because of talent, because of their relationship with the grind. Here's the secret no one tells you. The grind isn't punishment, it's privilege. The privilege to test your limits, the privilege to prove yourself wrong, the privilege to earn what others will never experience because they quit too soon. When you learn to love the process more than the outcome, that's when you become dangerous. That's when you stop hoping for success and start building it brick by brick, day by day. So here's your challenge starting today. Start waiting for easy. Start resenting the struggle. Start seeing every obstacle as your personal invitation to level up. That difficult conversation you're avoiding, have it. That extra rep when you're exhausted, do it. That project that scares you, start it. Because the magic you're looking for isn't in the outcome. It's in the daily grind that leads you there. The question is, are you willing to fall in love with the process? Are you ready to stop seeing obstacles as roadblocks and start seeing them as stepping stones? The grind isn't what stands between you and success, it's what carries you there. Now get to work. Now let me tell you what happens when you truly embrace the grind. You stop competing with others and start competing with yourself. You wake up each morning not asking, how can I get through this, but how can I grow through this? That project that's testing your patience, that's not stress, that's strength in disguise. That difficult client, that's not a headache. That's a masterclass in emotional intelligence. The grind isn't just about what you're doing, it's about who you're becoming in the process. Think about the most impressive person you know. I guarantee their secret isn't some magical talent. It's their willingness to do ordinary things with extraordinary consistency. While others are looking for hacks, they're putting in the work. While others are waiting for perfect conditions, they're making progress in imperfect ones. That's the alchemy of success, turning the lead of daily effort into the gold of extraordinary results. And here's the best part. This isn't reserved for special people. This is available to anyone willing to show up day after day after day. I want you to try something right now. Think of one area where you've been avoiding the grind. Maybe it's your health, your business, your relationships. Now imagine your future self 1 year from today, looking back. Will they be grateful you leaned into the challenge, or regretful you backed away? That vision, that's your fuel. Because the grind only feels like a burden until it becomes your advantage.